thinking that I could have done something, but now I'm left with an empty heart. No making amends, no waking up beside you and holding you till we forget it all. How could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. You couldn't keep the door shut, and now the frostbite's creeping in. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here. So come home, why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. Wizard of Oz can't undo what I've done. Completely out of luck this time. I'm stuck in reverse. I gotta get away now, but I can't seem to take the lead. Oh baby, how could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. Still, I find myself hoping that you'll find your way back to me. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here. So come home, why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold.
Roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing now that you're my desire. Now all I have to do is to make you mine. 'Cause I know, and you know what we could be. Like a song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me. 'Cause you know, and I know, we're onto something good. You know, and I know, we got something good. I've been waiting for the one forever. Finally I got you, baby, here in my heart. When I'm with you I feel so much better, oh yeah. Before you I was just a shell, so stuck in the dark. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky, oh. There's nothing missing now that you're my desire. song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me, 'cause you know and I know we're onto something good. You know and I know we got something good. Follow your heart, baby, don't be shy. Just follow yours and I'll follow mine. 'Cause I know and you know what we could be. Like a song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me, 'cause you know and I know we're onto something good. You know and I know we got something good, something good.
Hey, welcome. We are about to start. So a bit quiet at the moment in the chat box, but let me know if let me know where you're from. Let me know where you're from in the chat box. I can see that we have Lisa is here. Lisa's always the first person to arrive, so and always the first person to comment. So good to see you, Lisa, from a sunny UK over in Sussex. So who else is here? Let me know where you're from, and we have a special guest for this session today. We'll be starting very soon, and we're going to be talking about some of the trends, some of the things that are happening in the profession right now. And I was talking to Des before we started the live stream. And one of the questions that he asked me, which I'll ask you, is we're in challenging times still. We're coming out of COVID, but now we have all sorts of other challenges like recessions and cost of living crisis. So my question for you is, how are things affecting you right now? Let me know in the chat box, in the comments, wherever you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on LinkedIn. How are things affecting you, and perhaps how things are affecting your clients? What are you seeing in the world right now? What are perhaps some of the challenges? What are some of the opportunities? I'd love to know. And we will be starting on the hour, as we always do. I can see a few people commenting. Let me see who we've got. Marge is here. Hi there, Marge. Good to see you from Washington. And very familiar face. Who else have we got? And if you're here new, if you've never been to one of these sessions, just type in new into the comments, and I'll give you a special shout out, a special welcome. So we also have, is it Danica? I'm not sure that we've met before. Just type in new if it's the first time you've been here. You're from Newfoundland in Canada. So who else is here? We've got a Canadian here. We've got someone from the US. We've got Lisa from the UK. There's me from Portugal. You'll soon meet our guest who is from Ireland. So any other countries that I've not mentioned? We also have from Texas. Philip's here again. Great to see you. You hardly miss a session, so that's awesome. And we also have let's see what Marge says. So I asked the question, if you just joined, how are you seeing the current climate? And Marge says, total saturation. Tasks are taking longer due to increased security requirements. Okay, that's an interesting comment about the current world we live in. We have somebody here who's never been to a session with me before, Chris. So welcome to you, Chris, who's looking forward to it. And Chris is from Toronto in Canada. Okay, great to see you, Chris. Welcome. And so, Chris, these sessions are exactly 60 minutes. We go live on the hour. We start on the hour. We're live now. We start on the hour, and we will finish on the hour. I have a guest this time. I'll be asking. We'll have a chat about trends and so on. But also, if you have questions for me or Des during the session, then please ask questions. I'll tell you how to do that in a short while when we start, because I can see Lynn's here as well. Hi there, Lynn. Good to see you. Another face I know very well from Abbotsford. So lots of Canadians here so far. If you've not yet typed in where you're from, let me know where you're from in the world. And also, if you missed it, I did say earlier, how are things for you right now in the current climate? This recession, where everyone's talking about this recession that we might be going into, and the cost of living crisis, how is that impacting on you right now? I'm a little bit, because I live in Portugal, as many of you know, we're a little bit insulated from it. It's not so bad here in Portugal, partly because one of the things I was reading yesterday is that Portugal is pretty much self-sufficient when it comes to fuel. Some time ago, both Spain and Portugal invested heavily in wind farms, solar power. And so, for example, I know there's a lot of problems in Europe with getting gas from Russia, and Portugal doesn't get any gas from Russia. It doesn't rely on Russia at all for energy. So that's really interesting. So I don't notice some of this cost of living crisis that I know is really affecting people in the UK. Anyway, it is on the hour, so let me stop rambling, because it is time to start. So welcome to you to this session, and welcome to those of you who are new, like Chris. If you are new, let me know, just put new in the comments. So if, like Chris, you're new, been here for the first time, it works like this. I will be introducing our guest very soon, Des. We're going to have a bit of a chat about the current climate and the future trends for the profession. If you have any questions for me, and I can see the chat suddenly going mad, if you have any questions for me during the session, or for Des during the session, it works like this, and it doesn't matter whether you're in YouTube right now or Facebook or LinkedIn. Just put 2 capital Qs in front of the question. And that's just so that, because sometimes the comments goes absolutely crazy, goes mad. So sometimes I miss questions. So just put 2 capital Qs at the start if it's a question that you want to ask. And we'll try to get all of them answered in the 60 minutes. I can see some more people who have turned up. I'll just say hello to. So my good friend Rennie is here. Rennie's from Cornwall. He says that Cornish likes to think it's a separate country. Yes, I know that well. My good friend from the US, Bill Robinson's here. Hi there, Bill. Hope things are going amazing with you with advisory still. I know you're doing amazing things with advisory work. Lisa in Sussex in the UK was saying that she's very busy right now, got 3 brand new clients. So congratulations on things going well for you. Chris, who is brand new, says that he's have some financial planning clients that are struggling financially. If you just joined, by the way, I asked people, how's the current climate affecting you? And Lisa's very kindly put this in. That's how you ask a question. If you've got a question for me or Des, put 2 Qs in front, just like Lisa has done. Thank you for helping, Lisa. And thank you for asking as well. Things are great with me. And I hope things are great with you. I did ask earlier, you said yes, which is great. Okay. Let's, before I introduce Des, one final thing I need to do is wake up my laptop very quickly, because one of the things that we do is with every live session, our way of helping make the world a better place, because it is a challenging place right now. Every time we go live, when you show up live, we make a contribution to a project somewhere around the world through the amazing B1G1 organization. And our project for this month is, we know that over in Honduras, it's very economically challenged, and there's a particular problem with health issues to do with lack of proper cooking facilities. And so for each and every one of you here today, we'll add up the numbers afterwards. We get a report, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, and what we'll do is we'll make a contribution on your behalf to that particular project. So thank you for coming live. When you come to these live sessions, you are also contributing. We'll make the contribution on your behalf to help make the world a better place. Okay, so let's get started. Our session today is all about what's happening in the profession, some of the trends, the things to look for. I have a very, very special guest. I've known him many years. His name's Des O'Neill. He's like me. He's an accountant. He trained at PwC. And back in 2003, he set up OmniPro, and he's very entrepreneurial. He's developed tools, techniques, training to help accounting firms get better results, and he focuses on helping firms get transformative results for themselves. And also he believes that as a profession, we can change people's lives, we can transform the lives of our clients too. So with that said, I'm going to bring Des on. He should be there now. Hi, Des.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, Mark. I'm delighted to be here.
And I'm delighted to have you, Des. It's been, I think, probably long overdue that I've had you on one of my live streams. So it's great to have you here. And also, Des, you will be joining me in just 3 weeks' time, because you'll also be speaking at the Value 2022 conference. And if anybody has not yet got their ticket, you can get a complimentary ticket to our 3-day conference. It's all about value pricing and creating value for clients. And so if you haven't got your complimentary ticket yet, before the prices go up, I will ask my team to put the link in the comments box. Sarah, my partner, she's currently having a hair done, so she would normally do that. She's not here right now, but I think Emily might be around to put that link in the comments box. She certainly will be later on. So at some point during the 60 minutes, you will see that link, and I'll have some more links for you as well. Thank you, Emily. I can see it's arrived. It's arrived in the YouTube, and it'll arrive everywhere else very soon if you're not there. Okay, so let's get started, Des. We're going to talk about some trends and things coming in the profession. And I know that there's been a major change with COVID. In fact, I remember in early 2020, that was when Sarah and I decided to leave the UK and come and start life in Portugal. And so for us, certainly the last 18 months has been a little bit of a roller coaster and a lot of changes. But I think it's also had a big impact on the way that businesses run, and I think a big impact on the profession. So when it comes to things like managing people, resources, and so on, Des, what's your view on that? What's changed in the profession?
But you see, Mark, it's not just people and resources. For me, people and resources is one of the symptoms. You know, we came into COVID and the world was changing. So it was already changing. It had already happened. But what COVID did was it accelerated so much. It accelerated the digitization of business. Now, I'm not talking about accountancy businesses here. Accountancy businesses were well on their way, but the requirement to digitize, the requirement to go online, I described it back in April, May 2020 as the digital revolution, because now all businesses had to be able to function in a remote and technologically enabled way. So business changed, and what business owners wanted changed. Then you had people. So people changed. We I don't know what it was like for you, Mark, in the first lockdown, and you've got a global audience here, so everybody had a different experience. But I remember that first lockdown, we were locked down for 3 or 4 months, and people didn't go anywhere. And everybody experienced some kind of a lockdown. Some was longer than others. Some went on for a year. Others was shorter. But that lockdown was like a circuit breaker. It was like a circuit breaker for people to think about, well, what's really important to me here, and what do I want? Now, you know, we come and we look at these things. I presume most people here are business owners. So we come and we look at this from a business owner's eyes. Well, what do I want out of my business? But it wasn't just business owners were doing this. It was the entire world. We had COVID. Okay, so some of the things I'm going to say next maybe didn't impact as significantly your US audience, but you've got COVID, and it was all muted through COVID. That post-COVID, we were going to have this economic boom that the equivalent of which was only seen in World War II. And around July, August 2020, I kept going, but winter is coming. Winter is coming. And people were going, what do you mean? Why are you being so negative that winter is coming? Because the subsidy scheme and the quantitative easing and what we were going through in 2020, it's experimental economics. We printed more money globally from March 2020 up to June of 2022 than we did since 1972 or 1973, whenever they decoupled the dollar from gold. But then, so on top of that, if you take the UK, for example, Brexit, COVID masked Brexit. We didn't really feel the pain of Brexit until, like, we're only beginning to feel it now. Then nobody anticipated the war in Ukraine and the knock-on consequences. But now you've got COVID supply chain issues. You've got Brexit, and that's having a knock-on effect in Europe. And now you have the war in Ukraine and the inflation and the cost of living crisis. So all of this is bringing us into a time when there's huge economic uncertainty, and there's uncertainty in general. So people are considering their position, people are considering their jobs, people are considering what's truly important to them. Geriatric millennials are 42 this year. So the millennials and the zennials, or the millennials and the Gen Zs that come after them, they've got a very different outlook. This is the majority of our workforce. So where we are right now is really at the center of a perfect storm, which I believe the consequences of which haven't really landed yet. Now, we were talking beforehand about the recession, and I can see here Bill is saying the recession isn't impacting on me. I'm putting new prospects onto a waiting list. We're seeing Philip, inflation hit my construction client. The good news, I believe, for people in the accountancy profession is the recession is not going to impact us this time, because the scarcity of resources and people is putting a huge squeeze on the industry, bookkeepers and accountants. So bookkeepers and accountants are in more demand than they've ever been before. And I think that, like, if you're here on this session with you, Mark, or listening on your YouTube channel, you're ahead of the curve. You're in the leading pack. I think the leading pack have an opportunity here to really capitalize on this crisis and build a better business, a more sustainable business. And I think the laggards in the pack are going to experience pain. But go back to your question about people, like, we have to look at our business model. People are now the scarcest resource, okay? People are actually the scarcest resource for leverage. And if people are the scarcest resource, it's really simple. We need to raise our prices, work probably with less clients to generate more profit. And, you know, you've been teaching the essence of this for as long as you've been in existence, but it's really that simple. And to me, we need to get really clear on what is our business model? What are we doing right now? There's an opportunity here post-COVID with the economic uncertainty that's on the horizon in the next 12 months to make monumental progress going forward.
Absolutely. I agree with what you're saying. I see that. I mean, you and I both, we're both big fans of Paul Dunn. And I remember meeting Paul Dunn for the first time when I was in practice back in the late 1990s on his 4-day accountants boot camp. And Paul for decades has been talking about the need to change as a profession. And then we saw technological changes like the increase of social media. We've seen the growth in the last 20 years of being able to communicate in different ways, like live streams, like webinars, and so on. And I think the profession generally has stuck with traditional models. And I think what COVID has done, what lockdown has done, has been like a catalyst. It's really accelerated a change that's been taking place anyway, that's forced people to stop back and think, we have to do things a different way now. And in a way that people like Paul Dunn, visionaries like him, have been talking about for decades, that as a profession we need to change. But I think that pre-COVID, we were comfortable. And that's always a big problem. Whenever any business is comfortable, that's dangerous, because there's no need to change. And yet the world's changing so fast. So I think COVID and lockdowns has been a good thing, because it's forced us to stop, reflect, and look at opportunities.
Well, to look at opportunities and ask the question, why? Why am I doing this? You know, what's the point in owning your own business if you're not free? The 4 freedoms. Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, is a mentor of mine. And he talks about the 4 freedoms: the freedom of time, the freedom of money, the freedom of relationships, and the freedom of purpose. We have created our own businesses. in creating our own businesses, if they're not giving us what we want and the freedom we want, why are we doing it? There's easier ways to make a living. There just is. So we've got to design our firms by purpose. See, I think that's part of the problem that we have, that we kind of go with the flow, and we kind of do what has always been done, and then we don't necessarily consciously strategize and create our businesses. So that's a problem. But just what you said there about the profession, right? So Paul has been a visionary in the profession since the 90s. And I love Paul. I admire him so much, and as a person, he's an unbelievable human being. However, Mark, sometimes I wonder, did Paul make a mistake? Right? So Paul had this wonderful vision of this is what life can be like. Paul is this wonderful entrepreneur, this wonderful creator, this quick start visionary. But you see, part of what we have to accept about the accountancy profession, and this is probably not your audience. Your audience are probably different, but your audience need to distinguish themselves and be really honest about where they are. Huge chunks of the profession are never going to change, Mark. They're just not going to change. They're just not going to do it. I think one of the most important things we need to do as people is to get brutally honest about where we are and who we are and where we want to get to, and build a business by design that reflects us. Mark, your business is different to mine. My business is different to yours. Lisa, Chris, Philip, Bill, everybody here has a different type of business. I think there's a huge opportunity here for people who are at the front of the pack. But we can't assume everybody's at the front of the pack. The starting point is we have to admit where we are. Like, for example, Mark, if you want to get to New York, it's a very different journey to get from New York, from Portugal, as it is from the UK, as it is from Sydney, as it is from anywhere else in the world where your audience is coming from. And I think the biggest mistake that we make as business owners is not being clear on where we're starting. If we have a vision to get to New York, we have to be honest about where we're starting before we plot our journey.
Absolutely. And one of the things you said that was interesting, you've talked about how we need to design our own businesses, because we're all individuals. We all have different wants, desires, measures of success. And one of the things that I've seen with a lot of my audience is there is definitely an increasing trend to run completely virtual accounting and bookkeeping firms. And I'm seeing some that are doing it extremely well. Many people on the live stream will know Jessica Fox in Florida. And she's doing amazing things, getting amazing successes. But when I talk to her about her business, for her, it's very much about work-life balance. She seems to understand that really well. She has a virtual business, extremely automated and systemized. We were talking to her recently on a session where how she's automated her entire processes for how she pre-qualifies someone before she decides whether to meet them or not. And then up in Canada, there's the amazing Teresa Slack, a multi-award-winning bookkeeping business, and she's entirely virtual and focused in a niche of e-commerce. And so a question I kind of have for you is, I know that one of the big mistakes a lot of accounting firms make, and I did this in my practice when I started in '96, was to take on anybody as a client. And it wasn't until back in 98, 99, my good friend Steve Pipe taught me this idea of having an ideal client profile and being really clear and designing the type of client. And so what's your thoughts on that issue about firms very often having far too many clients?
Yeah, so the first issue is that we have too many clients. But the real issue is that we have not enough ideal clients. And, I'm going to tell a fable from Aesop, okay? There was a man and a boy brought their donkey into town to sell it at the market. and it was a hot summer's day, and they started out the journey, and the boy was walking alongside, and the man was riding on the donkey's back. And as they progressed into town, they met a group of people, and the people chastised the man and said, look, this hot summer's day, you're making the child walk while you're on the donkey, and this is terrible. So the man and the boy swap places. So now the man is walking, and the boy's on the back of the donkey. Now, they go in further along to town, and then they meet another group of people. And this group of people say to them, well, they chastise the boy and say, what are you doing? You're making this elderly man walk in this hot summer sun. This is a disgrace. And so the man and the boy kind of scratched their head and said, we've been here before now. Let's do something different. So they both got on the donkey and proceeded into town. Now, they're getting closer to town now, and then they meet a group of people. And these people are horrified that there's two people riding a donkey, and these are the animal rights activists, and they're saying this is a disgrace. This is just, So the man and the boy, they're very close to town now. So what they do is they say, okay, I know what we can do. We'll carry the donkey. And as they're carrying the donkey, they're going across a bridge over a river into town. The donkey slips, goes into the river, and drowns. What's the moral of the story? If you try to please everyone, you can kiss your ass goodbye. And now my wife hates me telling that story because she says it just shows that I'm a real accountant and how drab my humor is. But the whole point here is, if we try and serve everybody, it's just not going to work. We need to get really clear and really specific on who we're serving them and how we're serving them. And one of my favorite books of all time, Mark, is a book by a guy called John Warrillow, and it's called Built to Sell. And John Warrillow's Built to Sell, I've summarized it into 7 steps, right? So the 7 steps that I've summarized it into are: you start off and you develop products and services with the potential to scale. So you talk about that lady in Florida, that Canadian bookkeeper. They don't serve everybody with everything. They provide very specific services that they can manage and they can control. And identify the ideal customer to buy the products and services. Well, this is niching. Not everybody wants a remote bookkeeper, but the people who do want a remote bookkeeper or a remote accountant are perfectly happy to have one. Creating the positive cash flow cycle, building the team, developing a system to deliver the result, having a single focus on growth and sales, and incentivize the teams. So there's 7 steps in Built to Sell. But if you don't pick the right client, again, you're a huge advocate around Baker and Baker's Law. There's no such thing as the wrong price. There's only the wrong client. And so I think that accountants, more than ever before, and of course they should have been, but accountants more than ever before need to get clear on what we're doing and who we're doing it for and who is our ideal avatar. And Mark, how many times have you had small group conversations? How many times have you had one-to-one interactions with accountants when we can easily get them to admit that the biggest cause of stress in their lives is they've got too many clients and not enough ideal clients?
Absolutely. And whenever I ask the question, who's got a client they don't like? Everybody says, yes, I have. And I think back to my days in practice, and I had clients I didn't like in the early years before I started to really focus on the right client. And I always found that if I had a meeting next week with a client that I didn't like, I would be dreading it for days to come, and that would create negative energy. I'd be thinking, I've got to meet George again. He's going to complain about the bill and he's going to moan about it. And it's these clients that just bring you down and stop you performing at your best, because we don't want that negative energy around us. You mentioned John's book, and some people here know John Warrillow because I've had him on webinars before. And I would absolutely agree, if anyone's not read it, read Built to Sell. It's a great book. It's an easy book to read. It's a story. I was just looking to see if I've got it, but I've actually got his other book on my shelf here. It's a story, but it really gets across the point really, really well about really the keys to building a more sellable, more valuable business. And this whole idea of being really clear and not trying to be all things to everybody comes across really well in that book.
You mentioned, just when you're talking about John Warrilow, he's got another brilliant book, Mark, The Automatic Customer.
That's the one, yes.
So
one of my favourite books of all time, that.
Right, and then let's look at one of my favourite books of all time, The Membership Economy, from Robbie Kellman Bagster. And then she has a second book. Oh no, it's gone off my favourite bookshelf. It's been moved. Somebody must have borrowed it. But the whole concept, you talked about that accountant in Florida. If she's fully digital, how much has she integrated membership into her process and payment cycle? Or is she just, I'm a virtual firm?
Well, that's actually, she's not here right now, I don't think, so I can't answer for her. But I think I know the answer, and because I saw her put a comment in my Facebook group, because one of the things I'm a big fan of the whole subscription, automatic customer membership type of thing. And one of the things that I teach is I have an academy called the Online Live Academy, which is about teaching the profession how to communicate with more confidence, more professionalism, because I think that one of the best ways to win new customers, new clients, in a scalable way is doing things like live streams, webinars, and positioning yourself as an expert. And then the next level of that is when you're confident about talking to people through a webcam on Zoom, then why not scale your practice? Deliver a high quality advisory work by running a club where clients, potential clients, pay a membership fee every month for you to deliver value, advisory work, but rather than one-to-one, which is the old-fashioned traditional model, why can't we scale that? And going back to your question, Jessica in Florida, I'm almost certain that she runs a business club because she's part of the Online Live Academy. And I think she's doing that. And increasingly firms are.
So Mark, here's the interesting thing, right? Some accountants will say, well, that's not me. I talk about the rise of the Instagrammable accountant, right? The rise of the Instagrammable accountant. That's not everybody. It's just not everybody. It's not for everybody to be that person. Can you remember the first time that you ever did a seminar or a presentation, Mark?
Oh, I can yes.
The very first time?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was.
What was it and how good were you?
I was awful. I'll tell you the story because some people might know it because I sometimes tell the story because I'm a big introvert and I hate networking and parties and stuff like that. And the first time I was asked to speak in public was October 1999 by Steve Pipe. He wanted me to speak and share my experience to a room full of accountants. It was at the 2:00 session after lunch in a hotel in Leeds. And I got there extra early because I hate being late. I got there at 1:20 before the lunch break. I waited outside the room and my stomach was churning. I was in knots. I was in pieces waiting for the lunch break to be called. And then when the doors eventually opened and Steve let people out, which was late because he always overruns, Steve always overruns. So there's me getting more and more nervous. And as people are streaming out to go to lunch, I then walk in, Steve greets me and says, Mark, can I get you a drink? And I'm almost certain in hindsight he meant a glass of water. I was so nervous, I said, that would be awesome, Steve. Can I get a pint of lager, please? Now, I'm not a drinker and I'm not a lunchtime drinker, but I was so nervous. And then this is the crazy thing. I then set my laptop up while people were out at lunch. When I started and did my hour presentation, I spent the whole hour clutching this pint of lager, taking little baby sips during the course. I was that nervous. I needed a pint of lager to calm my nerves. It was an awful experience. But something magical must have happened because at the end of it, there was a stretch break afterwards. Everybody came up to me to ask me questions. They said, that was amazing, Mark, because all I did was tell my story about how I was a terrible accountant in practice, made loads of mistakes, but then learned some stuff thanks to Steve Pipe and Paul Dunn, did some stuff different, got some amazing results. And people said, That's amazing. And I realized that one of the things I realized looking back, it's nothing to do with whether you're you don't have to be a good presenter. If you've got something of value, if you've got a story that you can share, if you've learned some stuff in your practice, things you've learned that you can share with business owners, then it's the message that they want to hear, the value. They don't care what you sound like, what you look like. They're just things that we worry about internally.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then I'm also going to disagree with you on some levels. The first time I ever was asked to speak publicly was on a Start Your Own Business course in 2001. It was these courses were run through local enterprise board. And this guy met me somewhere. I actually attended a course and he said, "Oh, you're an accountant. Come on and do the accounts modules of my Start Your Own Business course." And it was an hour, and there was a 20-minute break, and then there was another hour. And I can't remember the phrase that I was using. But you know the way when somebody is not a good speaker and they keep saying the same phrase over and over and over again?
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was using, and he just said to me, so people hadn't even left the room. I finished speaking. There was only about 12 people in the room, but I might as well have been in front of 10,000. And he said, "If you say that phrase again, I'm going to break your legs." And so that's how bad it was. And people don't believe it, but I'm actually an introvert. So I'm an extrovert, introvert. I can behave like an extrovert because I've been talking on stage. But my first point in asking you that question is, any accountant here who thinks they can't do speaking, they can't do group teaching, it's a psychological thing. And as soon as you start doing it, the first time you do it is the worst you'll ever be. But the second thing, Mark, which you've really hit home at is, if you have something to share, you don't have to be the greatest speaker in the world. You just have to have something to share. And I think accountants have no idea how much knowledge they have. Another one of my mentors who wrote a great book, a guy called Michael Port, and he wrote a book called Book Yourself Solid. I believe every accountant should have Book Yourself Solid, the 6 pillars of professional services firm marketing. But, you know, one of the things that Michael Port taught me was the difference between being a category authority and the category authority, okay? The category authority wrote the book. A category authority is somebody who read the book, applied it, and is a couple of pages ahead of their audience. So accountants have this massive knowledge. They may not be the category authority, but they're sure as hell you are a category authority just based on the knowledge you have, if you could share that. And I believe, Mark, I don't always get to speak in front of audiences that are evolved enough to hear the message, but I truly believe in group education. I truly believe that accountants can scale their businesses, moving away from the compliance, building a team to do the compliance and get the compliance result, and scale. Like, for example, this morning I was on a coaching call with one of my mastermind groups. There was 20 people in the room. Now, what we covered in that session, I could have spent 20 hours one-on-one with all of them, but they got the same value as I served 20 clients in 1 hour in one call. And accountants can do that too. And it's, you know, where we are now, Mark, it's about wondering, what type of clients do you want to attract? You want to attract the type of clients who can consume the value and consume the knowledge if it's delivered in that way, because they are the ideal client.
You said something there that reminded me of when I did my first speaking session, that was 99. 3 months later, I then decided, you know what, I didn't die. I survived that experience. So I decided, in my accounting firm, I was a sole practitioner back then, I decided I would launch a business club where I invited clients and prospects to come for a morning, and we'd sit around a table. I'd share some stuff. We'd have a lunch break, we'd have a conversation, but I taught for 40 minutes. And people often say to me, accountants, bookkeepers, I don't know what I could talk to clients about. I couldn't deliver a 40-minute session. But I remember one of the sessions I ran is I read a great book, I'm sure you have as well, called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in that, it's a research-based book, and he talked about the 6 key things that separated the great companies from the good ones. It was a brilliant book and one that everybody should read. And I basically, as I read that, I summarized the 6 points, created some PowerPoint slides, and delivered a 40-minute training session to business owners about, basically, I even stole the book title. It was called Good to Great. And I said to them, I'm going to tell you some of the key things from this research study. And I remember people said to me, that was a brilliant session. And all I'd done, as you said, Des, I just read a great book that none of my audience had read and shared the stories, the things that I'd learned from that book. And we can all do that. We can all do that. We can read a great business book. You could people watching, they could read The Automatic Customer about subscriptions, make some notes. You could deliver a 40-minute presentation to clients, prospects, and be seen as being different to other accountants and bookkeepers, being somebody who's talks different and helps people build successful businesses just by reading something great and then sharing that in a scalable way.
Books is one way of doing it, Mark, right? And so books like The One Thing, books like Built to Sell, books like Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port, The E-Myth, all these books, we could take a book and we could condense it. But do you know an even easier way to prepare for a session with a customer's client, accountant's client club? And this actually has nothing to do with training or facilitation sessions. Email them and ask them what their biggest challenges are. And so you just do a straight email. If you were to email 50 of your customers and say, look, I'm running a business event, but before I do so, I just want to know what your top 3 challenges are. You could get really fancy and do it in a type form, but you could just send them an email and get them to reply. I hope none of my members are on. I can't see your attendee list, but this morning I was under a little bit of pressure, and we had our monthly mastermind call, and the girls are going, Des, you haven't prepared anything. And so all I did was I asked for people in the chat box to tell me what the big issues are this moment, and they gave me the big issues, and we had a brilliant 75-minute session around the big issues. So the best way to get material to help people is to ask them what they want help with. And when you've got a captive audience of clients, just think about it as a business owner. If your accountant emailed you and said, what are your biggest challenges right now? Give me your top 3 challenges. Even if you did nothing else with it, that'd feel good. If they then responded and maybe had a call with you about, okay, let's talk about your top 3 challenges. But then if you had an event, which was just a group of people and we answered the top challenges of the people in the room, there's just so much material. Accountants have forgotten how much they've learned. They've become insulated from the depth, the vastness of the knowledge and the expertise they have in terms of an ordinary business owner, because they speak maths, they speak tax, they speak debits and credits, they speak business acumen. So they've forgotten how amazing they are.
It is a great point. And we underestimate the value that we create for clients. And as you know, Des, the thing that I teach is pricing and value pricing. And the starting point of that is it's an internal conversation. We have to recognize first that the difference that we can make to people, the value that we can create. Because until we do that, we'll never price properly. We'll never have the right price. If we're always doubting ourselves, we have to recognize that internally. And I know for a fact that accountants and bookkeepers, they can save businesses. We can create so much value. So the next thing I was going to ask you, Des, is the main things I teach is that we should price based on value, and then what we should start doing is creating more value, which is finding out ways to serve our clients better, perhaps doing whether it's business advisory, tax advisory, and really finding the ideal clients we talked about earlier, find the right clients and helping them to build more successful businesses. What's your take on that? What do you see for the ordinary accountant? To what extent should the profession be moving to advisory, for example?
you see, Mark, this is a very inflammatory question now. You see, in some audiences, we should be moving towards advisory, but it goes back to being honest about where you are. I sometimes hear the guru set, and the guru set say everybody should be doing advisory, everybody should be doing advisory. The reality is some people are not fit for it. They need to evolve to get there. Do I agree with you that people should be doing advisory? The people who are able to do advisory should do advisory. The people who are not should be moving towards a point where they're able to do advisory. But I'm going to backtrack. So I'm going to leave that loop open for a second, and then I'm going to backtrack. I'm not going to have a pricing conversation with the pricing guru, okay? So I'm not. But I'm going to touch on what you just said. The sales process, okay? If we were teaching accountants sales, the sales process is to enter the conversation that your customers are having in their own head. If you can enter the conversation the customers are having in their own head, well, now we can make the sale. I believe for accountants, there's a step before that. And the step that I believe is before that is we need to enter the conversation we're having in our own head about our own worth, our own value, before we even enter that second conversation, because I think most accountants are beaten on pricing and sales because of the internal dialogue going on in their own head. And it's really interesting. I've quite a sad case. I won't go into it, but it's an accountant who's having some difficulties at the moment, and it's all got on top of them. The most decent, kind, genuine person I've ever met in my life, and I see this time and time again. We want to help, we want to do things for people, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't attach a value to it. So let's close off that loop, right? In terms of what's the conversation we're having in our own head. But should accountants be adding more value? Of course they should. There's a great book, Mark, and it's an old one. It's called Simplify by Richard Koch. And he was the guy who wrote the book on 80-20. But what Simplify is he did a study, 2 types of simplification, proposition simplify or price simplify. But he did a study in some of the greatest businesses in the world, like Henry Ford and the Model T, McDonald's, Apple, and he's looked at how did they simplify their proposition and how did they price simplify. But it comes back to, it's not about reducing prices in the context of accountants and bookkeepers. It's about how can we easily add and create more value? Like with the options that are out there now, Mark, for software and AI and automation, any accountant who's not providing value over and above compliance is at risk, because it's so cheap to provide it. You don't have to be the guru, strategic consultant doing all that. It's so simple. So should accountants be providing value and advisory? Yes. Should every accountant be providing value and advisory? Well, you've got to move to that point, but you've got to ask yourself the question, am I in Portugal? Am I in London? Am I in Sydney if I want to get to New York? And we've got to be realistic about the path we've got to take to get there. But I just believe now that advisory on some levels can be embedded into basic compliance services using technology and a small bit of process and system. You don't even have to get too fancy.
Yeah, and one of the things that was going through my mind as you were talking about that is sometimes people think, well, I can't do business advisory, which is fair enough. Some people aren't perhaps ready for that yet. And it doesn't have to be that. We have to create more value. That's for certain. What that is depends upon the individual person, what their passions are, their skill sets, their background. And I often get, because I work with both accountants and bookkeepers, very often bookkeepers, is the point we both said a few times, is that when we talk about create value, very often it's, yes, but I'm just a bookkeeper. And I find that very sad, because bookkeeping is incredibly valuable. I have a bookkeeper sorting out, and my business would be a mess without them. Bookkeepers are valuable. And And then when it comes to, well, how can bookkeepers create more value? If they don't want to go down the business advisory route, well, what are they great at? And very often, a lot of the ones I speak to and talk to, they live in this world of different technologies, apps that all plug together, that link into their cloud accounting system to create efficiencies and processes. And there's a huge opportunity, I think, for the profession, for bookkeepers, accountants, to be advising their clients as to what are the best technologies that we can start to link together. What's the best platform for managing employee expenses that can plug into our accounting system, for example? What's the best system that we could put in place that'll help us collect money faster? Because that's a world we all live in. We all go to these conferences and exhibitions and learn about this technology. But for business owners, it's overwhelming. They don't know it's out there, but we do. We live this world. We go to the exhibitions. And I remember some research done by a few years back, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was reported that the Big Four, for the first time ever, had reported declining revenues from compliance services. And yet one of the things that was a big growth area across all the Big Four was IT services. And you might think, yes, but I don't know much about IT. But technology now is almost like plug and play. You don't have to understand coding to install an accounting system for a client anymore. It's just about recognizing which is the best option for that particular client. Oh, they're in manufacturing. Oh, right, for manufacturing, we recommend this system and this system for managing work in progress, inventory, stock levels.
Let's take a look here. There's two things what you're saying, Mark. Let's take a look at the evolution of the profession. Let's go back to the 1980s. Manual ledgers, early computers were in late 1970s, but really computerization landed in the accountancy profession late 1980s. 1980s, it was more like word processing. It was quite basic. 2000, we became cloud. Okay, so 2000, we started to become technological firms, and 2010, well, to 2020, technology really took off, and then you hit 2020 and it's like boom, okay, because of COVID. That's what's happened in the accountancy profession. Look at how business has changed. In the 1980s, like, the accountant was like a god. Just what they said went. That's what it was. In the early 1990s, it was shifting and changing. It was becoming more commercial. Article clerks died a death, and you went into still a form of indentured labor in terms of training contracts. But then you look at how business has changed. Now, what if we float ahead another 10 years? What if we float ahead another 10 years? Look at the cars you're driving. Look at the computers. Look at the phones. I got my first iPhone, and I was late to the party, but I got my first iPhone in 2010. It's 12 years ago. Look at where the iPhone has come from version 1 to model 13. Look at the speed of adoption. What are business owners going to want in 2025? What are they going to want in 2030? And what are they going to want from their accountant? Their accountant is going to have to be a technology expert. Their accountant is going to have to be an expert in how you bring your business online and how you report for online businesses. If there was one niche that is growing and one niche that is going to grow exponentially, it is online business and the ability to teach people how to plug things together. Now, but Mark, you said something a couple of minutes ago. I was going to interrupt, but I have a tendency to interrupt, so I decided to be polite. Two statements. So the accountant who says, I don't have time to do this, I can't become this person, I can't do this marketing, I can't do that, right? We are kept from our goals, not by obstacles, but by easier paths to lesser goals. There's easier stuff. I keep taking the low-hanging fruit. And we grow incrementally instead of strategically growing exponentially. And that is as people, but also as businesses. And the second thing that when people say to me, and this is a huge problem now, resources and people. And well, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't. Success is not about resources. It is about resourcefulness. So when people say to me, I can't do that, it's not that they can't do that. They can. They're just not being resourceful enough. It's not about their resources. People can start from zero and achieve amazing things in 5 years, 10 years. So that's not about that's about resourcefulness. The most resourceful people are the most successful. But the second thing is, it's not obstacles. There's a clearer path to an easier, lesser goal.
Agreed. And I think that, I know we've touched on this already earlier, I think that one of the things that holds us back, and a big thing that holds us back, it held me back in my accounting firm back in the 1990s, was we this idea of, when I started my firm in 96, I thought the game was all about trying to win as many clients as possible. Anybody that, someone once described it as the mirror test. If you held a mirror up to their mouth and it fogged up, you would take them on as a client. So anyone alive, and that was kind of me, anybody could be a client of mine. Because I was focused entirely on gross recurring fees, top line growth. And for the first year or two, I was quite entrepreneurial. But then, and Michael Gerber talks about this, that's the old classic E-myth. And then before I knew it, I was full. I was working every hour possible, reacting to clients, doing the tax returns and so on. And a lot of accountants, bookkeepers, I believe, have way too many clients. Because when you have way too many clients, you don't have the time, you don't have the space to take that step back and look more holistically about, okay, let's look at the bigger picture here. What sort of practice do I really want to build? What life do I want? What's the right type of client? And we don't have time because we don't create that space. We're just too busy keeping the timesheets, logging the hours. If I can get my 1,200 hours done this week, then I'm happy. And I think that's the wrong approach.
Yeah, it's... do we focus on results or do we focus on effort? And you see, I think even the most evolved of us who are really realizing their potential may want to focus on results, but get sucked back into the effort game. And you see, as a profession, but also as society, we're and education teaches us, you work hard, and the harder you work, the better the results you get. But it's not about working hard. It's not about the effort. Different people get exponential results putting in, like, we've all got 168 hours in a week. We've all got 1,440 minutes in a day. Why do some people achieve exponentially more than others? Yeah, some people hustle, and there's an element of hustle and discipline to get a result. But the hardest working people end up in the graveyard earlier. So it's about being strategic about our business. Another mentor of mine, Dan Sullivan, he talks about the self-managing firm. The self-managing firm. And, imagine what it'd be like to have a self-managing accounting firm. And imagine what it'd be like, because that's not by taking on every client with a checkbook and a pulse. That's being strategic about actually thinking about our business model, thinking about John Warrillow's built to sell model, thinking about our products and services, thinking about how we're going to deliver them. Like, it sounds like that lady in Florida didn't just set up a business. She set up a business to scale. Now, sometimes people say to me, yeah, Des, but I've already got what I've got. I can't change now. If I was starting over from a blank sheet, if I could start from a blank sheet, well, I'd do it all differently. Bullshit. You've got a blank sheet today if you want it. You've got some more logistics to deal with. You've got some more challenges to deal with. But we all have a blank sheet. We can go off this call today and say, right, I'm going to do this differently. And don't say, if I could start over. If you feel you should start over, start over. We manage what we have and we build something new to emerge out of it. but it's about taking the medium to longer term view. It's about taking the medium to longer term view rather than the short term view, and it's maybe giving up some instant gratification for longer term results. It's about being strategic. But do you know what I'm really feeling right now? It's something I said earlier on. It's about being honest, Mark. It's about being honest about what do we have in our business. What we have in our business is the product of our choices that we've made to date. Now, what got us here to today is not going to get us to there. And if we've made some bad choices in the past, we don't have to carry them for the rest of our lives. We can take the rucksack off, put it down, and choose a different way and an easier way and a better way. But we have to choose. It is down to us to say, is this for me, or is there a better way?
Absolutely. I'm conscious of time, Des. We have 6 minutes left. I have 2 more questions for you. But I've neglected our audience and forgot to remind them, if they have a question, please ask. As far as I can see, there's only one question that came in a little while ago from Latasha, so let me just answer that. It was actually a question from me, so I apologise. But she said, did you sell those sessions, Mark? And I think that was when I was talking about when I was running, in my accounting firm, running a business club. Which I started in the year 2000, February 2000. The answer, Latasha, to that question is, back then, no, I wasn't charging. And the reason for that was partly because I didn't know how to. But also, even though I didn't charge, I ran that club for about 3 or 4 years. I had typically 15, 16 people would show up, business owners, both clients and prospects. And there were 2 major benefits of running that business club. Number one was I actually grew as a speaker. I became more confident because I kept doing it. I mean, the more you do something, the better you get. Des said, quite rightly, the first time you speak will be the worst ever. It certainly was for me. So running a monthly business club became great fun. Secondly, because I was teaching business skills based on books I'd read, people saw me as being different. And that helped me to sell consulting advisory services. And we always had prospective clients in the meeting, and we picked up a lot of clients, a lot of business through running a business club. It was extremely powerful. If I was going to run it today, I would do it different. Firstly, I would do it online. Because that's even more scalable. And secondly, I would definitely charge for it because it's a huge revenue opportunity. If you think about it, if you can have even just 10 clients that come and spend an hour with you once a month, and you charge them, let's say, $100 for that, that's $1,000 a month for delivering an hour once a month. And if you can grow that 10 to 20, that becomes $2,000 a month for no extra effort, because when you scale a business club, whether you have 10 people, 20, you grow it to 100, it's the same effort. Whereas if you're working one-to-one, our traditional model, you have to work harder and harder to take on more clients. So I hope that answers your question, Latasha. Anyway, so I have to ask 2 more questions of Des. I want to ask the question, I'm going to ask them the other way around, Des. So my second question is going to be, if there was one thing that accountants should do, what should it be? But let's hold him in suspense for a second, because I actually want to ask a different question first. And that's, Des, tell people a little bit more about how they can reach out to you. I know that we have Zoe here from CPD Store. And so how does that tie into what you do for accountants? And we'll put some links in for people.
I suppose, Mark, as you and your audience may have picked up today, I'm passionate about realizing potential. I'm passionate about learning and developing. I'm passionate about growing. CPDstore.co.uk is our CPD platform. We've just released a new platform, and that consists of technical CPD, like your tax, your audit, all the exciting stuff. But it also contains about people and some of the stuff we've done here today. So cpdstore.co.uk is a passion project for me, because it's about changing how accountants learn, and it's about getting accountants to fall in love with learning and to fall in love with their business again. And it's about basically making knowledge available so that accountants can focus on the most important things. They can grow their team and grow their team's potential. They can grow them and their potential. So cpdstore.co.uk. And we're running a special offer at the moment, where we're the next 1,000 members in, and we're actually giving them membership to CPD Store for $19.99 a month. So we're taking all question of price and value off the table altogether. So yeah, cpdstore.co.uk. I think Emily has my LinkedIn profile there. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's very easy. Des O'Neill, LinkedIn. You won't go far wrong.
Awesome. I can see Emma's already posted the link to the CPD store. There's, I think, a few more links going up there. Like, I think the link that's just gone in there is the special deal you mentioned. So that's in there. It's in, Emily, I know you're putting it in the YouTube channel. For those people on Facebook and LinkedIn, Emily will post it there as well. So my last question, and actually there was a question came in from Lisa. She did say, what are the 6 steps for firm owners to take? And I think we've gone through, 5 of the 6 areas. We missed one because we ran out of time, Des, but we probably didn't actually do it as a checklist. Here's number 1, here's number 2. It was kind of in the conversation. So I don't know where that's something.
I can give Lisa the checklist really quickly and then answer your question. Lisa, first step, get clear on your trajectory and your destination. What's your strategy? What's your business model? What's your plan? Second step, people. Think who, not how, and think about your people strategy. They're the most important resource in your business. Nurturing your greatest asset is your customers. We're not meant to serve everybody. So you've got to be selective about who you serve. The 4 P's are about product, price, proposition, and positioning. We talked a little bit about price and product, but this comes back to what's your business model? What are you trying to achieve? You must raise your prices. You should reduce the number of clients you're serving, and you should become more profitable. You need to grow. We've got to continually grow and attract new clients. Some of you will say, I don't want to get bigger and bigger, but we've got to attract new clients because the clients that got us here are not going to get us there. We need to build a system for growing clients, ideal clients. And number 6, we've got to look at automation and systemization. But Mark, what's the number 1 thing that accountants need to do? I think
put their prices up, I think.
Well, put their prices up, but I think they need to be really honest about where am I right now? Where do I want to get to? And what can I do? But God damn it, do something. Do something. Don't be sitting here next year saying, I wish I had, I should have. Accountants should all over themselves all the time. Be really honest about where you are. Set a path of action. Take the first step.
Absolutely. I teach a process to Academy members called Vision to Plan, which is basically we start with our vision and then we go through an exercise that works backwards from there to then create our strategy and our action plans. But it all starts with vision first. Where do we want to get to? I'd love to keep going, Des, because I've had great fun. And there's a few things that I would like to have talked about, like how do we automate the marketing and stuff, because I know you've got some great content around that. But we've kind of run out of time. And the good news is as if you came in late, Des is speaking at Value 2022 in 3 weeks' time. In fact, I think it's 3 weeks today, if I remember right, Wednesday. And so Des is going to be sharing a lot more great content in there. So come along, make sure you got your free ticket. I'll ask Emily one more time to put the link to Value 2022 into the comments box so you can grab that ticket and you can get some more of Des in 3 weeks' time. Des, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a fascinating conversation. I did actually say there was going to be one final question, which is what's the one thing you think accountants should do right now? I'm not sure if you covered that. Do you want to get something quickly in?
Well, no, that's it. It's about be honest about where they are. Be honest. Brutally honest with yourself, where you are and where you want to get to and why. And just brutal honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. Take some time out, stop, reflect, look at the bigger picture. That's been awesome, Des. Thank you so much for coming along. I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time at the conference. And for everybody else, if you've enjoyed this session and got some value out of it, please hit the thumbs up wherever you are. And also, it would be great if you could put in the comments, what's the best thing you've got out of it? What's the one thing that Des has said that you thought, wow, that's insightful, that's valuable? Just stick it in the comments box. While you're doing that, we always play out with some music, so give you a chance to put something in the comments box and chance for me to read those comments as well. Thanks for coming along. Thanks, Des. See you all soon. Bye for now.
I wasted all my time, I wasted all my nights, I wasted it on someone who's indifferent. He didn't love me right, he told me I was blind, but I never really wanted to listen.